Okay, well, this is a little bit of fun, that's for sure. Can you believe it? A little bit early to say, but if the next 20 races are anything like the first 3 that we've had so far, we're in for a spectacular season. No, keep quiet. I've got to do everything myself. Thank you very, very much for that. Also, we've got 3 sprint races. And last week I didn't do the show because unfortunately I was feeling ill, and you don't want to give anybody bugs and that kind of stuff. So I'm sorry that I wasn't here last week. Also, Canada has been cancelled, but we do have Turkey that's going to take its place. And this weekend is the return of the F1 PitBox live at the Baron in Fourways, Witkoppen, Johannesburg, South Africa. So if you're watching from abroad, well, I don't know about the travel things, but I tell you, they are really, really cool. But it will be all very COVID compliant and those kind of things as well. Also, I want to know from you, please, who was your driver of the day in Portugal? A very good evening. Welcome to the F1 PitBox.
This is the F1 PitBox with Sasha Martinengo and Gary Formato.
Well, listen, you might have noticed, but there's no Gary Formato. He's away on assignment. So it's myself and Henk, because Fritz is in Cape Town, but Peter's down in Pretoria as well. It's amazing what you can do with technology. Here's something. Did you realize it was roughly this week, I think it was about 2 days ago, 5 years ago, that Max Verstappen was pulled from Toro Rosso to go to Red Bull? 5 years ago. So it means it was like the beginning of that season. He's been racing for 5 years and he's only like 22 or 23 years old. It is quite phenomenal. Also, 20 races to go. I think we're in for something very, very special. During the course of this evening, I've got a little bit of Formula One trivia for you. We're going to talk about the Portimao race. And I have asked you, please tell me who you think your driver of the day was. I've got my Facebook open over here, so you can post on there. And then I can look at all of the comments during the course of the show. So hello to everybody who's saying hello this evening. Great to have you along for the ride. Now, some very, very interesting news that has come out today. Is Red Bull becoming Mercedes? Now think about this just for a little bit. I'll tell you why. A couple of weeks ago, the Red Bull, which is Milton Keynes based in the United Kingdom, announced, and I'm just looking here exactly so I get all of the names right, that they had signed Mercedes head of mechanical engineering, Ben Hodgkinson, as its new technical director. So that's one person from Mercedes going to Red Bull. You want me to go on? Steve Blewett becomes Red Bull's unit production director. Omid Mostagimi becomes Red Bull's head of powertrains. Pip Claude, Mercedes power unit, will become a head of design of ERS. And Steve Brody will become the Red Bull group leader of the internal combustion engine operations. That's 5 people that are going from Mercedes to Red Bull. And we've seen this over the years. We've seen McLaren take Ferrari people. We've seen Ferrari take McLaren people, and vice versa. So it's not something that's too uncommon. But with the fact that Honda are pulling out at the end of this year, Red Bull need these kind of expertise. And they must be paying top money to get these different engineers. Although it's not too far, and most of them are British-based as well. But that's quite an interesting story to start off with. Another interesting story, in 2 weeks' time after the Spanish Grand Prix this weekend, of course, we have the Monaco Grand Prix. And can you believe it? Spectators are going to be allowed. And we've got a picture of some of the spectators at Monaco. We're going to put that up for you in a couple of seconds. There we go. Those are the kind of spectators. I'm only kidding. But there will be spectators at Monaco. It will be limited, but there will be spectators at the Monaco Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time. Just as there will be spectators in Spain this weekend, but when I say spectators, I mean 1,000. And usually we have about 140,000 spectators at the Spanish Grand Prix. Other news that has come out, and I'm so delighted about this as well, Romain Grosjean. And, you know, it's quite amazing how many people sit there and just think of Romain Grosjean as somebody who crashes all of the time. And is, unfortunately, there are too many people who just remember him just for the crashes. And of course, that massive crash that he had in Bahrain, which he was very, very lucky to survive. But Romain Grosjean really is an accomplished racing driver and a fantastic racing driver. And he's already showing that in the United States as well. But the great news for him is his Formula One career ended, of course, in that fiery accident in Bahrain. And then, therefore, he didn't race. And, of course, he was dropped from the Haas team. But Mercedes, and I think this is a wonderful gesture from the Mercedes team and Toto Wolff, and well done, have given the opportunity to Romain Grosjean to do a one-day test in the current Mercedes-Benz car. And at the French Grand Prix, because he is French as well, he's going to be doing a couple of laps around the Paul Ricard circuit as well. And I think that's really something very, very, very special. And I really hope it goes well for Romain Grosjean. However, and maybe you can answer this question because I can't answer it, okay? Romain Grosjean, I saw a picture of him yesterday in his Mercedes overalls, okay, which look as elegant as ever. However, he had a Belgian flag, not a French flag or a Swiss flag, because don't forget, he is actually Swiss-French. I think he was born in Switzerland and grew up in France. But he had a Belgian flag. Maybe it was old Stoffel van Doorn jacket. I don't know. Anyway, just something that I noticed as well. All right, so more news for you as well. You remember Cyril Abiteboul? Of course you do. He was the big boss of Renault, and then got, I'll be honest, surprisingly dismissed from the team. Well, now this also gets very, very intriguing. If we start looking towards the future of Formula One, 2022 is a huge year. Big changes, regulations, and of course thereafterwards 2024, 2025 they'll be looking for hopefully some new manufacturers to enter into the fray of Formula One, all depending in which direction the teams decide to go in terms of the power unit. How much electricity will they go? More electricity? Will they go hydrogen? Nobody knows at this stage. So Cyril Abiteboul has now just been appointed as the advisor, the motorsport advisor to the company called Mecachrome. And for those who know the sport quite well, Mecachrome, of course, used to develop all of the Renault engines for the Renault customer teams back in the days of Flavio Briatore, etc. So he's definitely there to keep an eye on something and perhaps become a supplier to one of the teams in the future. At present, Alpine, or Renault, as we know it now as Alpine, but it is Renault, only have themselves. They've got no other team on the grid. And if you sit there and think Mercedes are very, very stretched with themselves, Williams, Aston Martin, McLaren, yeah, that's them. So one more, Ferrari, Haas, Alfa Romeo, that's 7. Oh, McLaren. There we go. Okay, there we go. My maths is not very good tonight. Anyway, so Renault have to look for somebody else also to partner with going forward. Oh, yeah, Honda's got the two Red Bull and AlphaTauri. So Honda's going to be pulling out. This could be a great opportunity, even though Red Bull, of course, will hold on to the Honda expertise together with all of these new Mercedes people that they've got. Where does Mecachrome fit in? Watch out for that name. It's going to be there. Now, here is something which is very interesting as well, is the sprint races. And unfortunately, last week we didn't do the show, so I wanted to talk about it. And we've got a couple of slides, just to try and explain how this is going to work. But I must emphasize to you, these are test events for Formula One. It does not mean that these are going to carry on in the future. We've seen in the past when Formula One have tried to change qualifying, sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't worked. They've gone back and reverted to it, to their previous system that they had. So these are going to be test events. And the first one is going to be at Silverstone. Now, this is how it works. We know on a Friday, the cars and drivers go on Friday and they have 2 free test sessions. There we go. We've got a very cool image up there as well. So on a Friday, we are used to them having 2 free practice sessions. What's going to happen on the weekend that these are designated, and the first one will be at Silverstone, they're going to have a 1-hour practice session. Okay, and I think, Henk, just leave that up there for quite a while I try and explain this. Okay, so they're going to have a 1-hour free practice session. Each of the drivers will now get one fewer set of tires. So from 13 they will get 12. Okay, so they will go out and do their first free practice session. They have to use 2 sets of their tires, any compound, okay, and hand one back to Pirelli for the afternoon qualifying. And this is where it is quite interesting. They have to only use the softest compound available, and it will be the same qualifying system that that they currently use. Okay, and that is how they will determine the grid. Then you can come back to me, Henk, anytime. Then on Saturday morning, the final free practice system will be a free choice for the drivers to choose whatever tires they want. However, they've got to think about Sunday's race as well now because of their tire selection. Then the sprint race, they're free to choose whatever tire they want. So unlike before in qualifying that Q2 determined the tire that you're on, we all know that they have to use the soft compound in all 3 of the sessions. They now can choose whatever they want. Okay. Oh, one other thing I have to remember. In qualifying on the Friday afternoon, no matter how many tires they use, they have to have one brand new set of soft tires for Q3. If they don't, they're basically going to start 10th. That's basically how it's going to do. So the sprint race, then, it's going to be a third of the distance of a Grand Prix. So usually a Grand Prix is 300 kilometers or so, or 304 kilometers. So it's roughly going to be a third of a Grand Prix. They're going to go and race, which is going to be terrific. And then whoever wins gets 3 points. Whoever comes second gets 2 points. Whoever comes third gets 1 point. And then that will determine the grid for the main race on Sunday. And on the main race on Sunday, they have free choice of whatever tires they want. Does it make any sense? I mean, does anybody understand what I'm trying to say over here? I think it could be fun. However, I am cautious of it. I'm not entirely convinced by it for a couple of reasons. And the main reason is the wear of the parts. We're now in a position where we do have the budget cap. And if you have big crashes like George Russell and Valtteri Bottas had at Imola, all of a sudden, a lot of your budget now goes to making parts for those cars. If you're in a sprint race and there is a crash, you could have issues. Also, they're still restricted on the amount of engines that they can use throughout a whole season. So what happens now if we have these 3 events? Red Bull are chasing Mercedes. There's 1 or 2 points between them. I'm just saying hypothetically. And all of a sudden, one of the teams, whether it's Mercedes or Honda, now has to take an engine penalty and it messes up the championship. So there are a couple of concerns that I have about it. However, I am interested to see if we will, how it's going to translate, and we'll get that in Silverstone. Okay, coming up in a couple of seconds from now, I've got a little bit of trivia for you. Yeah, there we go. Ted Ryman says it's Stoffel suit. It could well be Stoffel suit, but it did have Romain's name on. Oh, I didn't actually see his name. Okay, anyway, there we go. Okay. Lynn says, oh my gosh, I'm not entirely sure what oh my gosh is. Do they show all the pre-practices on Supersport? David Jones, of course, yes, they do. They do. There's tremendous amount of coverage on super sport. Lynn says it's interesting, weird, but it's going to be interesting as well. Rakesh says his driver of the day was Lando Norris. Please keep them coming through. Who was your driver of the day at Portimao? Nice to have Lee Phillips watching all the way from Mauritius, celebrated his birthday the other day. Happy birthday, Lee. I hope you had a great party. Maybe one of these days we'll be able to enjoy it all together. Okay, good to see Ian Pepper. There we go. Glad to see you fit. I'm fit again. Yes, I hope you get fit as well. He broke his leg. Unbelievable. There we go. Suan Joe, all the way from Canada. Canada being cancelled again. And my husband and I were planning to go. Maybe next year. Definitely next year, Suan. And hopefully I'll come along there as well. I've got my good friend Ernesto, who I'd like to see. Now, let's have a little bit of trivia. You try and work this out in your head. If you want to play, just submit your answer on the Facebook live stream, and I'll pick it up. Who was the first woman driver to score a point in Formula One Grand Prix? Who was the first female driver to score a point in a Grand Prix? Okay, there we go. That's the question. And yeah, send your answers, and let's see. We'll do it a little bit later. Now, let's get to Portimao. Some people, and I have to be calm here, on social media, whether it's on your Twit faces or whatever other channel it is, expressed disappointment that this was a boring race. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I think maybe I need to get Robbie and Josh to go and sort out a couple of the keyboard warriors out there. That race was anything but boring. If you only watch racing because you want to see a spectacular crash, then I think you're watching racing for the wrong reasons. But we always knew this was going to be a difficult track. Don't forget, we were in Portimao only 6 months ago, and we had unseasonal rain at the time. And that created a massive spectacle for us. I mean, who could forget Kimi Räikkönen on that opening lap as opposed to this opening lap that he had this past weekend? But this track, don't forget, was purpose-built mainly for two-wheelers, for motorbikes. And we've been fortunate enough that Formula One has got the grading and went there. It is a magnificent circuit, but it doesn't lend itself to great overtaking. We saw that. They even tried to include a second DRS zone. However, we did see some great overtaking. The other issue that we had with this track is that Pirelli brought the hardest compound of each of the compounds. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So the hardest of the soft, the hardest of the medium, and the hardest of the hard. The track temperatures weren't warm enough. They couldn't get the tires tires up to temperature, and everybody struggled. So there was a lack of grip, but it did also make for some exciting stuff. Guys sliding all over the place. One little mistake, and man, that Fox Terrier comes and bites you. And we saw that with Lewis Hamilton, and of course with Max Verstappen. So let's talk a little bit about Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen. We've had 3 races. It's 2-1 in terms of wins. However, there have been 3 very, very close races between 2 exceptional drivers. We had the safety car after Kimi Räikkönen looked down in his dashboard and hit his teammate by mistake, which was very unfortunate, but very lucky for Giovinazzi. He could have taken them both out. But the funniest comment has come out from Kimi Räikkönen's son, who said to his dad, he says, "Yeah, Dad, but when I'm riding a go-kart, you always tell me to look forward." So I think that's the sort of embarrassment that Kimi Räikkönen is going through at present. But going back to Lewis and Max, after that safety car, Bottas knew that he couldn't allow anybody to get into the slipstream because it is quite a long drive down to turn 1. And Max just got it right and managed to pass Lewis Hamilton. And from there, looked pretty good, chasing after Valtteri Bottas. But Lewis Hamilton, as opposed to Rocco, his pug dog that he has, that big bulldog, is a fox terrier. And he will sniff you out and he will hunt you down. And it was one little mistake which lost the momentum for Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton pounced and managed to get past Max Verstappen. And from there, it was a great fight between the two of them. which was wonderful. And we've seen it in all 3 races so far. So there's very little when it comes to the drivers. When it comes to the cars, one could debate it for days and days and days. However, it's just wonderful to see that there is somebody else challenging the likes of Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton. I think, if I'm not mistaken, if you looked at last year after the first 3 races, the points difference, it was something like 38 points between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. At the moment, it's only 8 points. So, and we've got 20 races to go. So plenty of racing to go. Valtteri Bottas also getting tremendous amount of criticism. Let's just be realistic. He's racing against perhaps one of the greatest racing drivers to have ever driven a Formula One car. He's his teammate. He's been there for 4 or 5 years. He does have some unlucky moments. Let's be very honest. But if you've got Lewis Hamilton chasing you down all of the time, or if Lewis Hamilton's in front of you, you have to be as quick as him. And Valtteri is that little tenth, just not fast enough. In qualifying, he sometimes can out-qualify Lewis Hamilton, but in race pace, man, it's that half a tenth here, half a tenth there. That's the difference. However, I cannot understand what happened to Valtteri Bottas's pace. I don't know, because at one stage he was about 4 seconds ahead of Max, 4 seconds ahead of Lewis, and he was looking very comfortable. And then all of a sudden, it seemed as though his tires fell off the cliff, which was peculiar, because if you look at it, Sergio Perez did 53 laps on those set of tires and was still being competitive in terms of his times. Something happened to Valtteri Bottas in that first stint, and in the second stint, he was chasing, and I think he actually would have passed Max Verstappen, but unfortunately had a sensor on his exhaust, which put paid to his race. But he finished a credible 3rd, and of course, started on pole. He would have wanted to win, but it just didn't. It just didn't work out for him. Then we've got to talk about the second Red Bull driver. And that, of course, is Sergio Perez. Wonderful performance, brilliant stuff. And for those who have watched the show many, many times, there's one thing I've always said when it comes to rules and rule makers in the world of Formula One, and that is consistency. We need consistency all of the time. We've had a couple of races where track limits weren't enforced the way that we expected them to be enforced. And we get to Portimao, and now they're enforced, yet Lando Norris definitely passed Sergio Perez while being off the track. Perez didn't aggressively go for it and thought that Lando Norris would give his position back. Eventually, 12 laps down the line, or 12 and 10 seconds down the road, Sergio Perez manages to get past Lando Norris. We have to see both Red Bulls and both Mercedes fighting each other. That's what we want, because that is when strategy comes into play. It's wonderful that Perez drove so magnificently afterwards and got up into 4th place and got far. Bottas got fastest lap and did all of that. But we need the 4 of them together. And I watch the race and look at the times of everybody. And Perez is also just a tenth or 2 in race pace, sometimes 3/10 off the pace of the likes of Max Verstappen, Valtteri Bottas, and Lewis Hamilton. So he's got a little bit of work to do, but he's doing an exceptional job. Lando Norris and McLaren, I'll talk about in a short while. Let's talk a little bit about Alpine. I mean, they're 2 very iffy first 2 races of the year. Get to Portugal on a track that's got no grip, and all of a sudden, they're magnificent. Shocking qualifying for Fernando Alonso. Brilliant for Esteban Ocon in terms of qualifying. And they finished 7th and 8th. Great points for the team. And they are of the belief that the new updates that they bring this weekend to Barcelona, if they work, then they believe they are going to have a very, very strong season. So that's quite interesting to watch this coming weekend. Looking at Ferrari, another great drive from Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz, unfortunately, just couldn't get to grips with his second set of tires. Maybe a strategy decision that was wrong from Ferrari. They saw that the tires weren't working. They should have, I don't know, improvised. Make another plan. You can see, I mean, anybody can just see what sort of times Carlos Sainz was doing compared to everybody else in the same kind of tire. And if he's going so much slower, change your strategy, you know, just to get data. Even if maybe you can't score points, just get some data. So it was peculiar to see that. But another very strong performance from Charles Leclerc, but a great qualifying from Carlos Sainz. And I think this team is really developing into something very, very strong. Ferrari, of course, just still 30, 40 seconds down the road. So they've still got a long way to go, but it's a vast improvement from what they had in 2020. Let's get on to McLaren. And lots of people are voting for Lando Norris as their driver of the day. So let's have a look at, I'm hoping Bottas and Norris can take the challenge to Max and Lulu. Okay, Connor, is that what you call him now? Lulu. There we go. All right. Ted, yes, you got the answer correct. Well done. Just Jules as well. Diane Guest. Stephen Kuhn, you're getting the answers all correct. We'll get to that in a short while. Let's talk McLaren. Danny Ricciardo, wow, just something also. I think it was a team error that unfortunately got him out of Q1. But another spectacular performance from Lando Norris in qualifying and in the race. This guy is just, I mean, he's just so bubbly, he's so much fun, and he really, really is a sensational racing driver. But Danny Ricciardo also drove back magnificently. So very, very impressed with the McLaren of where they are. And this fight between McLaren, Ferrari, maybe Alpine, if they get up there, and Toro Rosso. Didn't have a good weekend, but I think it's a team to watch out for as well. But brilliant from Lando Norris, and yeah, I mean this kid's really, really good. Then some of the other teams, let's discuss that. We've got the top 10. So we'll start off from the point scorers. AlphaTauri, Pierre Gasly getting into the points again. They just struggled this weekend with grip. They couldn't get it right. And that's 2 races in a row where I think AlphaTauri have lost some points that they could have taken. Okay, so that's AlphaTauri. Yuki Tsunoda, after his great debut, beginning to learn that Formula One's not that easy, but a solid drive, finished the race. So great stuff for him. Next one, Aston Martin. This is now becoming a headache for, I think, a lot of people, and it all goes down to the rake system of the cars, the height of the rear of the car compared to of, let's say, the Red Bull compared to the Mercedes and the Aston Martin. They could have changed them. They could have done what they want. That's what the rake looks like at present. As you can see, the Mercedes on the right-hand side is much lower to the ground compared to the Honda. There are, there's a whole technical side to that, and perhaps maybe I'll do it in the next show, just explaining how that all works. And I don't like to see teams sitting and moaning about rules, because at the end of the day, they do all agree on them together. And sometimes the rules work in your favor, and sometimes they don't work in your favor. But it wasn't a fantastic race for Aston Martin. It hasn't been a spectacular start to the season for the new team coming in. However, I think both of the drivers towards the end of the Portimao Grand Prix, and especially Sebastian Vettel, actually was really going well. So if they can bring some updates to this car and find a little bit more of a balance, there's no reason why it shouldn't be constantly scoring points, as it was last year. Yes, it's not the same car as last year, and we can debate that till the cows come home. But there's no reason why Aston Martin shouldn't be consistently in the points as well. The Williams team struggled desperately when it came to grip. But on one lap, I mean, how unlucky is George Russell? I think it was 700ths or 7,000ths of a second he missed out on getting into Q3. But however, from there, the car just went backwards. They just had no grip. They really struggled, just as all of the other teams did as well. And it was just a very, very difficult day for George Russell and Nicholas Latifi. And then the final team, of course, Haas, Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher. I'm going to leave Mick Schumacher until the end. Nikita Mazepin, and a lot of people have come out, look, he was a whole lap down on his teammate, and he was so much slower, and he was this, he was that, or whatever. They actually adopted a completely different strategy for Nikita Mazepin because the car was so slow that they decided that instead of him getting lapped all of the time or having to move over because of blue flags, they brought him in for an extra stop and gave him clear track and sent him out and said, listen, just go out there and get data and learn a little bit more. So not 100% representative, being a lap down on your teammate. It was more of a strategy decision by the team. But Henk, if you can just pull up those times again, the fastest lap times. There we go. Hopefully you can see these. These are the fastest lap times. And I mean, if you look at the first two, okay, these were on different tires as well. But if we go further down the page, you can see Carlos Sainz there in 14th. Slower than, I mean, Stroll in his Aston Martin. You know, Ferrari, what are you doing? You look at Leclerc in a 21.4, you've got Sainz in a 20, he's 8/10, nearly a full second behind. Change the strategy. You've got nothing to lose. So do something. But the one that I'm very interested in, and this is where I get to my driver of the day, and thanks for submitting yours. We've had a lot for Lando Norris. We've had quite a few for Sergio Perez. My driver of the day was Mick Schumacher. And some keyboard warrior over the course of this week sat there and said, oh, is it because his name is Schumacher? I said, no, because he had a fantastic race. His best time was less than 1/10 slower than George Russell in a much faster car. Yes, the grip levels or whatever, but let's be honest, that is not bad going at all. So he was 1/10 slower than George Russell. Okay. And just as Lewis Hamilton waited and pushed and pushed and pushed Max Verstappen, and Max made one tiny little error, Mick Schumacher chased down Nicholas Latifi lap after lap after lap. And you could see the difference in the power between the Haas and the Williams on the straight, because on most of those laps, Mick Schumacher had DRS, but couldn't get close enough, but pushed and never gave up. And all of a sudden, Latifi made one little mistake and Mick Schumacher grabbed it. And to me, I thought that was just a consummate professional doing the best that you can with the machinery that you've got. So that was my driver of the day, was young Mick Schumacher. Now, let's have a look at what we've got here. Good evening, Steve. Garth is there as well. Yay, he had so much talent. Just about 4 seconds from first to last. Something needs to be done to bring the gap down, especially with the best drivers in the world. Imagine F1 where first to last is separated by 1 second. Eli, great question and a great comment as well. We do know that this year is also a year where a lot of teams are not going to bring a lot of upgrades. So unfortunately, we are stuck. The only concern that we all have is for when 2022 comes along, where, you know, are we going to find the same as what we found in 2014? One team just having a massive step over the rest. We'll have to wait and see. Hey, we got Natasha and Fichart watching. There we go. I was watching Darren at the golf earlier today. Ended off well. Well done. And my good friend Gavin Koppel. Nice to have you along as well. My 1010 Ebulvula. Thank you. Shawnee's on there as well. I'm just checking out to see Rakesh. Ferrari always mess up the strategy. Yeah, I hear you. I would have done something different with Carlos Sainz. I promise you that's what I would have done. Stephen Kuhn says Mercedes still in a different class, but for someone like Max to challenge in a way weaker car is a big step up. Same goes for Lando. Very, very good point. Although I must say I don't think the Red Bull is that far off Mercedes, but I do agree that it's still not the same as a Mercedes. Stephen says, leave Kimi alone. Kimi is one of my favorites. All right. That's having a look at what happened at the Portimao Grand Prix. If you've got any other comments, here we go. Rory says, Norris is great consistency, plenty talent. Watch out, Max. I agree. I think it's wonderful what kind of talent we have here as well. Coming up in a couple of seconds, I will give you the answer to our F1 trivia for this evening. Okay, here we go. I think we pushed the wrong button over there. But anyway, the question was, who was the first female to score a point in Formula One? And the answer, lots of people have got it correct, and well done for it. Quite an interesting story as well. It was the 1975 German Grand Prix. And the lady in question was the lady by the name of Lella Lombardi. And she was racing in that race and qualified. There she is. And she finished in 6th position, which in those days, that was the final points paying position. And she got that 6th position. However, it wasn't a full point. She only got half a point because they actually had to stop the race because of, just, yellow flag cautions and all of those kind of things as well. So, yeah, well done if you got that correct. It is, something very, very special. And who knows? We've got our own Tasman Pepper, who's going racing in the W Series that are going to be sort of the warm-up races to Formula One in 8 of the races this year. Who knows? One of those ladies could be in Formula One very, very soon. Nice to see my good friend Trevor Tuck. He says, nice haircut. Thank you. What's left of it? Which hair? I think it was this one that they cut the other day. Now, the F1 PitBox Live is back after 2020 with COVID. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go out and have fun in person with all of my friends. But I'm very, very pleased to say compliments of Tom's, the Only Music Store, the Baron, of course, and Arnold Chat's Cars. Starting this coming Sunday, the Spanish Grand Prix, I will be at the Baron Witkoppen, which is the Baron in 4 ways. And I just want to let you know that all COVID protocols will be observed as well. So my suggestion is if you are in the Joburg area and you want to come along, please book now to avoid disappointment. But it's going to be great to be able to get amongst you again and sit there and rub shoulders and sit there and argue about who the best is and why they're the best. Anyway, so I've just put this together. So hopefully you'll come and watch or be there this coming Sunday. Here we go. Okay. Sam says, go Tasman. What's your take on the latest story from a few weeks back about a South African return? Seems a strong backing from Stefano Domenicali. That's from Stefan. Stefan, it's a great question, and I've been asked this quite a few times, and I'm 100% for it. There are a lot of people who are sitting and saying, oh, it would be so nice if we have a race in Cape Town because of the backdrop and, which is wonderful. Cape Town, beautiful city, wonderful backdrop. It'll be another street circuit. Do we really want another street circuit? Is Cape Town, is Cape Town geared up for this? Do they want to spend that kind of money? So here are 1 or 2 little obstacles that we have with this, Stefan. Number one, you need a tremendous amount of money to put on a Formula One Grand Prix. Kyalami as a race circuit is this close to getting F1 status. It has to have a certain certification from the FIA to be approved as a Formula One test and race circuit. And it is very, very close. So to do that is not going to cost a tremendous amount of money, and it can be done. So I'm sure the owners of Kyalami, if they were given the opportunity, would definitely take it and go for it. And I think, in my opinion, that would be the perfect place to have an African Grand Prix. So I'm not discounting places like Kenya or Morocco or even Mozambique, for example, but none of them have circuits to the quality that we already have in the likes of Kyalami. So the obvious thinking definitely goes to Kyalami. The next big problem is you need billions of rands to get this up and going. Now, I have a full financial document of how you can make Formula One profitable. However, how would you feel as a South African or African if the government came out and said, we're putting 10 billion rand into Formula One at Kyalami for the next 6 years or 7 years? we can show you on a graph of how it's going to bring the country money. What about people who don't have running water and electricity? So there is going to be something very, very difficult, and there's going to be some conflict and discussions, heavy discussions. However, I think it is essential to have an African Grand Prix. I think if this government of this country, together with various promoters, thought about it very carefully, it is a no-brainer. It does bring in money. This is not a loss leader like an Olympic Games or a World Cup soccer. This does bring in money, and it brings in a tremendous amount of money. So yes, let's hope that Stefano Domenicali speaks true to his word. He said maybe within the next 5 years, we could have a Grand Prix in South Africa. Who knows, 2023, 2024, we might have South Africa, we might be Kyalami on the calendar. However, let me just warn you in advance, for those who maybe have not gone to see a Grand Prix live in another country, it is not cheap. So don't think that for a second, all of a sudden we get a South African Grand Prix and you say, oh, let's go to Kyalami, and you say, okay, I've got $500 for it. No, it's going to be very expensive. So if we do get it in 5 years, be like me, start saving now so I can afford a ticket. There we go. Okay. What's your take on Toto, what he did for Romain? Guy, where have you been, buddy? The show starts at 7. We've spoken about Romain and Toto and everything. So very, very happy about that as well. David Jones, East London has a great course. It is still there, and it is a magnificent circuit. Ask any racing driver in South Africa. East London is a wonderful circuit, but is nowhere close to being Formula One status. It was in the 60s, but no longer now. Okay, Ocon has also shown a new level of maturity. Very, very much so, Nikki. Great comment as well. It takes that little bit of confidence. You know, a good, strong weekend, and Ocon is back up there again. And I tell you, he did give Fernando a little bit of a fright. That's for sure. All right, let's have a look. What is happening this coming weekend? It is the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain. All right, I think we've got a picture of it as well. There we go. Now, there's some very interesting things that are happening in Spain at the moment. There is a picture of the circuit. Okay. We all know the circuit. Everybody knows the circuit. There's not one driver who doesn't know the circuit backwards. Does it lend itself to great racing? Sometimes not, and sometimes it does. Who would ever forget the heartbreak of Mika Hakkinen with 3 corners to go and his car breaking down? Those kind of races. However, it is a circuit that the drivers love. Whether or not it's going to be spectacular or not, I can't tell you. All I can tell you is there's a 50% chance of rain. Although people in Spain say there's no ways the rain is going to fall down in Spain. There is something that they have changed to the circuit, and that is turn 10. I think we've got an image of that as well. Now, turn 10 used to be quite like a hairpin turn. They have now changed that, and they've widened it as well. There we go. The old, you can see it was much tighter. This is now made it a lot faster, and perhaps that might give a little bit of impetus to the cars that are following. My biggest issue with the Circuit de Catalunya is unfortunately the final chicane that leads onto the long pit straight. If that chicane was modified, you would see a lot more overtaking, a lot more fun. But maybe that'll come in the years to come. But here's something very interesting that I found out today, and I'm just going to read it because I've got it next to me over here. The Circuit de Catalunya, the home of the Spanish Grand Prix, was the first Formula One racetrack to be awarded the FIA coveted 3C sustainability accreditation. Now, we're talking about circuits just getting FIA Formula One status. This circuit now has the 3Cs, and the circuit has adopted a 3C philosophy. It's very interesting when it is approaching sustainability, as it focuses on conscience, commitment, and coherence. As it has done since 2017, any electricity used at this weekend's Spanish Grand Prix will be powered by 100% renewable energy origins, which has saved the circuit 10,000 megawatts in the last 4 years. This is just one of the many achievements and initiatives the venue should be very proud of, having set the standard of what can be expected at a host circuit in the way of sustainability. The 1,000 fans in attendance at this weekend's race will be the beneficiaries of the circuit's 0-kilometer food program, which sees local suppliers provide food across the race weekend, which not only supports local businesses, but means the short journeys cut down on the CO2 emissions produced in transit. I think this is fantastic stuff. You know, things that when you look at how circuits are also trying to help the world of motor racing and the planet itself, these are very, very important initiatives, and well done, very, very well done to the Circuit de Catalunya. So 50% chance of rain this Sunday. It's only Sunday. Will it be exciting? I don't know. But if it's anything like the last 3 races where we've got this great fight up front, it's going to be exciting. And whether you're a Lewis fan or a Max fan, and Lewis wins and you say it's another boring race, or Max wins and you say, you see, it's just a car, then, you know, those are the chips that you have for yourself. But I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be quite a bit of fun. First and second corners, always great. Yep, I hear what you're saying. I'm just going to go through. Nice to see Roy. Nice to have you along for the ride as well. Also, if you can, share the video, or and pass it on to your friends as well, just to give a little precursor as to what is going to happen, or what, you know, some of the stories that they might have missed during the course of the show. Also, last weekend, of course, was a very, very difficult weekend for anybody in motorsport. It was the date where we lost Roland Ratzenberger on the Friday, the 30th of April, and then on the 1st of May, we lost Ayrton Senna. Never, ever forget, this coming Saturday, the 8th of April, will be the 39th year since the death of the man that actually got me inspired into the world of Formula One, and that was Gilles Villeneuve. So never, ever forget. Let's see what happens this weekend. Maybe I see you at the Baron this coming Sunday. If I do, I look forward to your company. Otherwise, of course, you can catch us right here on the F1 PitBox. A big thank you to Henk for helping me out this evening, and Peter, and Gary away on assignment, and I'm sure he'll be with us very, very soon. All I say, until next time, let's go racing.